Let's talk about Boolean operations. When a shape we need is not amongst the standard shapes in Sketch, we're going to have to create that shape ourselves. Now I know what you're thinking. The first impulse is to grab the vector tool and begin drawing that shape from scratch. However, you'd be hard-pressed to find any shape, no matter how complex, that can't be broken down into the basic shapes. So, with Boolean operations, we can achieve these complex shapes simply by combining the basic shapes that are included in Sketch. Before we jump into what Boolean operations are and the specific Boolean operations we have in this program, we need to discuss in more detail vector shapes. Now in the last lecture, you recall, we drew vector paths using a series of points. Well, these are paths, so to speak. However, a shape can have as many subpaths as we want, and how the resulting shape will look depends on how these are combined. So, when we do Boolean operations in Sketch, it will add the topmost shape as a subpath of the second shape, and use the particular Boolean operation that we select. Now, because Boolean operations in Sketch are dynamic, we can always adjust the subpaths later on. We have 4 different Boolean operations available to us in Sketch. The first, union. The result of a union operation is a vector that is the sum of both vector areas. So, it's going to combine both of our shapes. The subtract. The result of a subtract operation is a vector where the area of the top shape is removed from the one under it. Intersect. The result of an intersect operation is a vector consisting of the parts where the original shapes overlapped each other. And lastly, we have difference. The result of a difference operation is a vector that is exactly the part where they didn't overlap. It's the inverse of an intersect operation. Go ahead and take a look at how these Boolean operations work. I have drawn 2 circles of the same size and they are overlapping each other. So let's go ahead and just select both of these layers, and we're going to grab the union button. You'll notice that these shapes are now one shape. Also notice that the bottom shape maintained its styles, while the upper shape adapted to the style. Also notice on the left side here, if we select this disclosure window, we can still maintain our paths and we can edit these after the fact. Let's go ahead and we're going to do a subtraction now. So select both layers and subtract. Notice the top layer was then subtracted or cut out of the bottom layer. Let's try the intersect, and the 2 layers where they intersected is maintained and the rest deleted. Lastly, let's try the opposite of intersect, the difference, and we're going to get that shape right there. So that's a quick introduction to how Boolean operations work. Currently have 3 shapes drawn: an oval, a rectangle, and a star. These are all individual shapes overlapping each other. Well, instead of selecting all of these and selecting union, one thing we can do to unionize shapes is to grab the top one, or grab any of them, and instead of dragging it below, I'm going to drag it directly on top, and it's going to create that union for me. I'm going to do the same thing, grab the star, drag it up, and directly on top. We now have a union created between all of these layers. If I select the disclosure window, I can open up these different paths, and along the right side of these paths, I can look at the current Boolean operation and I can select none or a different one.